Start. Line wins A1. Chase Sexton wins. Race winner. Austin Forkner wins. Hayden Deegan is a world champion.
This guy is fast.
How you do it?
Yes, welcome. The racing calendar stopped, but SMX Insider does not. So Jason's here, Weigandt and Thomas talking Monster Energy Supercross and the SuperMotocross World Championship. After a weekend off, we're headed to Arlington, Texas this weekend. Now, I know people are going to make a big deal out of the off weekend, JT, but I hear riders every week when we don't have time off saying we made a big change or we're going to make big changes, we're going to work on things. So sell me on how the off weekend actually means they can change more.
Well, there's two things here. I think the off weekend does help, but you have to actually get to the weekend to get some rest. You know, that first week where there's no race that following weekend is really where a lot of progress can be made, not only training wise, but you can actually get some of your testing crew maybe out to Florida, ride some different tracks, different types of dirt to really take steps forward for the types of tracks we're going to see over the next several rounds. So it presents a really nice opportunity, but I think it's a little bit situational. Not everybody needs to take huge steps forward. The guys that have been doing really well on the weekends, maybe they're okay and they're just going to go through their normal riding progression. But some of those guys who've been struggling, think about a guy like Justin Barcia, they probably went back to the drawing board and really tried to make a big step forward.
Okay, well, you sold me on that. It'll be interesting when we get to Arlington to see if certain riders have made strides. We made some strides putting this show together. We have a lot to analyze, including both 250 East and West. West going into a break. East just had one. How will that impact things? Military appreciation race coming up. A lot of great history baked into this race at Arlington, including Cooper Webb breaking Ken Roxon's heart back in the day. We'll analyze the track and a lot more. But one rider who already has some laurels to rest on is the 40-year-old Billy Laninovich, who made a comeback for Supercross this year, and he's made two mains. So let's talk to him. Big interview time. Yes, Billy Laninovich taking time out. Are you like literally going riding right now? Like you're in gear, you're in a motorhome. Is this what you're doing right now?
Yep. I drove out to Texas. I left on Saturday night at like 8 p.m., drove to Yuma for 3 hours, slept, and then drove like 13 hours yesterday. And then, or the day before, and then I had maybe 5 hours yesterday. So yeah, here at Master Pools, and they think they start riding right at 11. So we're going to get a little bit riding in today.
That's awesome. Well, we got to take a step back because this whole thing, I think, caught a lot of people off guard. You've been missing from the scene for a very long time. So you can just briefly walk us through what you've been doing for the last 10 years and then what prompted this return back to Monster Energy Supercross at 40 years old.
Yeah. I went and became an electrician. I not completely quit riding, but I probably rode maybe 20 times in the last 8 years. Became an electrician for the last 6 years. And I had a buddy of mine. He wasn't a friend at the time, but Ryan Zieber called me and he was hounding me to quit my job to come train his son. And then finally one day he's like, hey, we need you really bad. So I quit my job. I trained his son for maybe 3 or 4 months. And then I did a dual sport race and had a blast. And then another buddy's like, hey, your style's still sick. You could still race Supercross. So that got my mind going a little bit. And Pastor Larry heard me on a podcast on Whiskey Throttle and called me up and he said, hey, are you serious about racing? And I'm like, I think I can do it. Mentally, I feel like I can, but physically, I'm not sure. I need a bike. So Bobby J's Yamaha got me a dirt bike and started riding outdoors September 4th. That was like my first day of riding, and then starting a mountain bike and gym and all that stuff. And got on a Supercross track in October 3rd, I believe. And just slowly just took my time. I don't think I hit a triple for 3 weeks. I was scared to death. I was scared to hit the rhythm sections and stuff, but I just slowly got into it, took my time, and yeah, man, how I'm here, it blows me away every single day. Like if you would have asked me 6 months ago, I would have been riding Supercross. I'd be like, yeah, right. You're crazy.
So going through this process, right, there's a lot of hurdles you have to clear to get back on the racetrack, let alone making main events. When I think about it personally, the mental side is far too tough. I don't want to assume that much risk anymore, let alone physically. I'm just not the person I was 20 years ago. So what has that been like for you? What has been the biggest challenge to get back out there and compete with? I mean, let's face it, these are kids you're competing with on Saturday nights.
Yeah. Dude, the risk is high. It's very high. I just believe that there's a purpose in this. I believe God's got me here. He's given me a talent, and for me to still be able to use that at 40 years old, dude, is just amazing. So I believe that there's a purpose. I got landed on in San Diego. That was like one of my worst fears. I've never had that happen in my whole career. And getting landed on, getting in first turn pileups was always a fear of mine when I was younger. And man, I should have been hurt. I should have a broken femur or a broken hip right now. And I truly believe God's watching out for me, and there's a purpose for it. So that's how I get through it, the mental side of it, because you know how it is. Those first couple of laps are crazy, man. Jumping the triples next to each other and all that. Once we spread out, it's not bad. But yeah, dude, I'm having so much fun doing this right now.
So we knew it would be awesome if you could make one of the mains. You end up making 2 in the 250 class. But the reason you're in Texas is now you got plans to race some 450s on the East?
Yeah, I'm going to do Arlington and Daytona and just see how it goes from there. I know Birmingham is after Daytona. If I can get in the night shows and be kind of competitive, then I wouldn't mind maybe going to Birmingham too. I feel like I ride the 450 better. So just as long as I'm comfortable on the bike and all that stuff, I got stock bikes. It has suspension, big gun exhaust. There's not much done to them. So as long as I'm comfortable out at the races, I think I'll be all right.
And just tell everybody real quick, they can tell by which bike you'll be on. Will you be on an old style Yamaha or a new one?
That I'm figuring out in the next couple days. I got a brand new 24 that I have not ridden. It's been started once or twice. So right now I'm getting the parts on that bike. So I'm going to go practice on my 22. That's what I know I'm comfortable with. So I'm going to adapt to the track, get all the rhythms and the triples down, and then come back, work on the bike until I get it finished, and then go take the 24 out and just spin some laps and see if I'm comfortable on it. So hopefully the 24. That 24 is bad.
I just love that on our show, we'll talk about the Chase Sexton, Jet Lawrence, Eli Tomacs of the world. And then there's you breaking in a bike on a supercross track and just crossing your fingers, hoping for the best. I love this. Seems like you're having a good time with it too.
I'm having fun. I don't have to go out and get results. If I was racing seriously, I probably wouldn't be doing this. Definitely coming in not prepared, but I'm enjoying it. Me and my dog Bingo, we drove out here, just me and him, and just enjoying it while I can. You know how it is. It goes by so fast, and just having fun with it.
Awesome. That's what we'd like to hear. All right, good luck, mate. Maybe we'll see you in a main as soon as this weekend on a 450, maybe.
That's going to be a long shot, but if I can pull it together, get in that night show, get a good start. I don't know if it ain't going to happen in the heat race, but in the LCQ, if I can get a good start, we'll see.
All right, we'll be watching. Thanks for the time. Go ride.
Thank you so much, guys.
Fowler's Facts time. We're going to bring our staff statistician, the king of the calculator, Clinton Fowler, out. And today we're going to talk about numbers, age numbers. I feel like we hint around this all the time, Clinton, that the sport is trending older, but you've got some real hard data to really prove it this time.
Yeah, Weege, there's definitely some data behind this. There's definitely some older riders out there. I think before we dive into the older riders currently, there's a couple we've got to look back at and really recognize how amazing the accomplishments were. Justin Brayton wins at 33 years old, 11 months, nearly 34 years old at Daytona, right? Just an incredible race to win. That is just impressive. And then the other is John Dowd at 44 years old, podiums at the Southwick National in 2009. Like, just absolutely incredible. He has 10-2 moto finishes that day. JT, you've got to be right around that 44-year-old mark there. Like, what do you think about coming out and racing a Pro Motocross National?
Yeah, I can't imagine. The racing side, you could maybe talk me into it under, if I needed to save someone's life, I could go out there and race. But the fact that he was able to get a podium at that age, and maybe it's John Dowd, and he has proven to us time and time again that maybe he is immortal. But just what a remarkable accomplishment at that age to be standing up there on the podium.
Yeah, so Dowd's career is one of the all-time weirdest. And by the way, the reason we're talking age here is we're going to get deep into what Billy Laninovich has just accomplished here by making main events at age 40. But Dowd's deal doesn't make sense in so many ways, Clinton.
Yeah, I mean, he wins that 1998 West Coast Supercross at 34 years old, when Ricky Carmichael was 17 years old winning the opposite coast. So just an incredible career for him, Weege.
Yeah, but he started riding late. I think he started at 21. He got a factory ride at 28. So it all sort of trended in that direction. No one is ever going to match John Dowd's career. We'll see if anyone can eclipse what Brayton did winning that Daytona race. So what do we have showing that Laninovich is at the top, but there's a lot of older riders out there these days?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the field these days. This year alone, we've got 15 guys that have made a main event over the age of 30. So definitely aging. It's not historically been a young man sport, but we've now got some guys that are a little bit older. You got a guy like Ken Roxon who's going to join that 30-plus crew here in April. But guys, there's only one that's done it this year that's 40 years older, and that's Billy Laninovich, and he's made 2 main events. Absolutely incredible. You look at Anaheim 2, he got 22nd. That was the first one he made. And then more recently here at Glendale, he got 19th. Just impressive. And JT, it's just not a young man's sport. I mean, how difficult is it for a guy like Laninovich at 40 to be making main events?
Well, the way he's done it, I've watched those races really closely. And to me, he showed his age in a good way, not in a bad way, in a good way, because of the experience that he's had over the years. And you saw him in the LCQ where he was just really patient. He was looking around. He was very aware of the situation. You didn't see him engaging in any of the craziness. He understood the situation. He was easily in. He didn't try to go up and make silly passes that really weren't accomplishing anything. And to me, you can say a lot of things about his age, and yeah, he's not the same rider he was 20 years ago. But in his mind, I watched him assess those situations and make great decisions accordingly.
So again, this is amazing what Laninovich has done. But I got a question for you guys. I think I know the answer. Both of you help out with analysis on Race Day Live in the afternoon, correct? Right?
Sure do.
Okay, guys. So do me a favor. Just fill more time in the show so Brayton will have the opportunity to skip some of Race Day Live and get back on the track because he's going to be 40 in March. I believe he has podium speed. Those are Weigandt's facts. So put it in there and become a 40-year-old 450 main event guy. Clinton, I believe this could happen. Those are my facts.
I think so. I mean, we just got to encourage him, I guess.
You ask him all the time, don't you?
I do every week. When's it going to happen, JB? Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, mid-March he'll be 40. I think he's locked into us at Race Day Live. That's good and bad. I want to see him out there. But for now, hey, Billy Laninovich, you're at the top of the heap. 40 years old, making mains in the 250 class. Okay, 30-second board time. Hot topics in the sport. JT, you wanted to tackle this one. The 250 West riders are now about to have a huge break, but they will not be resting on the couch, say you. Explain what happens during this time.
Yeah, this 6-week break is always an opportunity for these guys to get ahead of the game for Pro Motocross. And I think there's a misconception about, they're going to maybe, go to Mexico and take some time off. No, this is their opportunity to get some testing, get their base fitness level for Pro Motocross. So when we hit the track this May, they're going to be way ahead of, say, these East Coast guys are going to be racing Supercross all the way through the spring. So it's just the way the schedule typically sets up, but it does present a nice opportunity in the case you do have a 6-week break. And speaking of that Pro Motocross season we have coming up, that will kick off this May, and a lot of familiar venues that you're used to. We're going to kick off the series at Fox Raceway at Paula late May, and lots of questions we think we'll know, but we'll get a lot of answers there as well. But, a lot of these same rounds you'll see. We go to Hangtown, Millville in late July, but all the venues that you're hoping for, we're going to get those. Another great Pro Motocross Championship. I'm very excited to see what happens in that 250 class as Hunter Lawrence moved into the 450, and can Jet Lawrence continue that dominance that we saw in 2023?
Yeah, I know it's tough for everyone looking out their window right now on about half of the country in February to picture the summertime outdoor motocross, but it's less than 100 days away. So time is ticking quickly. I want to transition into this one. Justin Barcia is doing great things off of the racetrack. He drove the Ecto Cruiser into opening ceremonies for Ghostbusters at Anaheim, and then he helped with a wedding proposal in the pits. This is wild. He actually in the autograph line. Some people like to do this on the racetrack. Look at that. He had it in the ring. Amazing, JT.
Yeah, this is awesome. I've actually done this myself with someone on track walk way back in Atlanta years ago. So I know this all too well, and all you're hoping and praying for is that she says yes, which obviously happened, you can see here. But what a great moment. And for people getting engaged at Supercross, That's incredible. So I don't know if this is how she exactly drew it up, but she seems awfully happy there. So good for them.
You had me excited there, JT. I didn't know you were the one handing the ring. I thought you actually did the proposal. No, you just helped. My point here is that Barsha's doing cool stuff off the track, but it's actually trending worse every week on it. What is going on here with Barsha?
Well, you have to wonder, he was the guy last year that couldn't stop talking about how much he loved his motorcycle. You flash forward, and we should know better. You flash forward to 2024, and now he's the guy that's really struggling, making some questionable posts on social media about the motorcycle. Now, what I'm interested in is, did they make him switch to the new chassis? I don't know that. We've heard that he is on the new, or I guess new to them, 48 millimeter forks that Cooper Webb was begging for last year. And it seemed like Aaron Plessinger and Chase Sexton both really like. So as is always with riders, preferences differ. And just because one guy really likes something and one dynamic on a motorcycle, you can bet that someone else on the same motorcycle hates it for that very reason.
Okay, who's next, JT? Explain this. So we thought Barsha might have been a contender to win a race this year. I think we're putting that one on ice, but there are some other guys certainly that could do it, considering we have 5 winners already, right?
Yeah, you have to think that Eli Tomac's going to find a way to get one of these things done. It's shocking, right? You look at race 3 at Anaheim 2 and say, well, that was the flash. He can still do it. Jason Anderson, you see there, he probably should have been your winner at Anaheim 2, made mistakes, penalties, crashes, all those things. So it's crazy that we have this many winners this early into the season. I think it's probably kept Quentin Fowler up at nights so far. But this is what we want. This is what we want out of a championship. When the gate drops, we want to be guessing who's going to win the race. And there has never been a season like this where we have no idea what's going to happen when that gate does drop.
Speaking of proposals, I'm going to put a not so modest one here. Here's the real intriguing thing. I just know how these seasons usually go. It seems inevitable that Anderson and Tomac will win races and we'll get to 7. I'm going to say that won't happen. And the real question will be, which one of those doesn't? That's what's crazy. How well Anderson's riding and how established Tomac is. Is it possible we go through the rest of the year and neither or only one of them wins a race? I think it is. That'll be interesting to watch. And we can see that dynamic play out in 250 East, right? We entered in Detroit thinking so many riders could win, and then a first turn crash wipes out half a dozen of the potential winners. Now, we think all those guys are going to be healed up and back, but I mean, what data do we really have on 250 East right now?
Yeah, I think the parity in the 450 class will mirror what we're going to see in the 250 East because we didn't learn a lot, right? I feel like that Detroit was eerily similar to what I normally feel leaving Anaheim 1 in the 450 class because half of the field was laying in the first corner. Hayden Deegan has now had 3 weeks to heal up that mystery wrist that we didn't know where its status was going into the first round. You think about Cameron McAdoo, he looked so great in his heat race and then had a first turn crash as well. So we're going to see a lot of those stars back into the mix and guys that were kind of way back. We didn't really get to talk about them during the main event because they had gone down. This is their opportunity to kind of right the ship and get back into the championship. When you think about those 250 East guys, Austin Faulkner picks up a win, and you know what that means, Weege. He has now guaranteed him a spot into those SMX playoffs, and it feels like it's so far away going into September, but it's really not. You think about these winners, they're already in. Their fate is sealed. They're going to get a chance to go back and battle. And you remember what it felt like at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum as Hayden Deegan took the inaugural championship there. But what a nice feeling for them. Austin Faulkner was on the outside looking in last year, not this year. 450 class as well. These guys have already found their way in to that championship playoff. Now, all we need is for Phil Nicoletti to jump onto a 450 and go out and win a 450 main event, and he'll find his way into this class as well. But it is a huge deal. Last year, we watched as that all unfolded. We weren't sure how that was going to play out, but now we know. You have to start thinking about this so early and how that positioning is going to play out all the way into September.
Honestly, I got so deep in the trenches in Supercross, I'd forgotten that rule. I'd forgotten that winning a race gives you an automatic bid into the playoffs. And it looks like any of those guys we just showed, all 10 of them, well, they're going to make it anyway, right? This sport is weird. This sport is fickle. Faulkner could tell you that last year. Having a guaranteed spot goes a long way. And along those lines, here's Chase Sexton, who we were talking about really playing the consistency card so well early in 2024, even at the red plate. And then he gets hurt. Not bad enough to not race at Glendale, but bad enough to not race at the level he wanted. So that's just an example. One of the most durable guys, a guy we've seen hit the ground hard and get back up many times. had a hand injury in Glendale. So the question here is, that weekend off, is that enough to get him back to where he was before that when he had the red plate? What do you think?
I think you'll see a marked improvement. For him to be able to go out there and run around inside the top 10, you could tell he had lost some grip strength. He wasn't able to ride with the same intensity. But for him to salvage the season, as long as there wasn't anything broken that was going to get significantly worse over the break, and I don't believe that's what we're looking at, I expect to see him much better in Arlington. Now, is that good enough to win? Is that good enough to be on the podium? That's what we'll find out when that gate does drop on Saturday night. But I do expect to see a much more competitive Chase Sexton. And when you think about this race in Arlington, it has been so pivotal in championships in the past. You think about the battles that Ken Roczen and Cooper Webb have gone through. And honestly, Cooper Webb has broken, like you opened the show with, he has broken Ken Roczen's heart at this very race. And one of the reasons why is he can utilize a lot of the strengths that he has. He can cut under. The track's a lot softer than what we saw in Glendale. He can get underneath Ken Roczen like you're seeing right there. And this is one of the battles for the ages. And it really, to me, kind of defined that championship and why you saw Cooper Webb able to walk away with it. And don't forget, this track has been one of the races where we've seen Eli Tomac really struggle. Some of the weirdest, strangest, most question-raising rides we've ever seen from Eli Tomac have happened at this very venue in Arlington.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because Cooper Webb starts every year super duper underrated. I bet you right now if you quiz people and said, can Cooper Webb just straight up beat Jet Lawrence? Webb's ridden well this year, but I still don't know if people are convinced to that level. But in 2019, if you quizzed all the fans coming through the turnstiles at that stadium and said, is Cooper Webb better than Ken Roczen and Eli Tomac? I think everyone besides Cooper's mom and dad would have said, dude, he's good, but he's not Roczen Tomac level. Well, Tomac had a terrible race. And like we said, he broke Roczen's heart, and that really broke everyone for the championship. So I just think about how badly does Cooper Webb want to do that same thing to Jet Lawrence now like he did to Ken Roczen 5 years earlier. Not just win, say with a whole shot, but do it in that heartbreaking fashion late in the race. That's what Webb specializes in. This could be, as you said, a really pivotal round. I'm looking forward to it. And then we'll go to the track map now. You can only change the Dallas-Arlington layout so much as a football stadium. It's not going to be the same as 2019, but just take us through it. And this is going to be familiar turf for a lot of these riders.
Yeah, the first thing that jumped off the page to me was the start. And it's the exact same setup that we saw in Detroit. And that doesn't mean we'll see the same events occur, that first turn pileup in the 250 main event. But it is a difficult one for riders to navigate. And the one thing I would say, and you'll see riders really pushing in the heat races, the starting gate position is going to be critical because when trouble occurs, it always pushes wide, right? Bad things push wide, you end up off the track and onto the concrete, and guys go down. So watch for that same dynamic, and that's why you saw Cooper Webb so frustrated with his heat race crash in Detroit, because he knew he needed to get to that inside in the starting gates. So I think the rest of the racetrack is a very prototypical Supercross layout. The start is going to be uber critical, and watch for those gate positions to be more important than ever. And speaking of important, this race has a special meaning to a lot of people. Being one of the military appreciation races, for me, I love to see the creativity. I also love the salute to service that everybody kind of leans into. But I just think there's so much to look for. Each team has their own kind of look. That Honda HRC always, to me, goes above and beyond. They get really creative and just different looks each year. But to me, this is one of the ways that we can really just kind of send a nod to all these people who are dedicating their lives to keeping us safe. So for me, huge event, great event to be a part of, and one of the most fun events of the Supercross series as well.
Yeah, I love it as well. So I'm going to put in a request here. The KTM group, the Austrian companies, they never get in on this with their bikes. So KTM, Husqvarna, Gas, the gear, certainly the TLD gear, we know how creative they get. Alpine Star, Thor, the gear companies do great with their riders. But besides like a cursory American flag at Redbud, maybe like one time, I've very rarely seen these brands get in on it. They didn't do anything at the 50th anniversary at San Diego. So that is my request. Could you please do something? Just put like a military logo on the front fender or something. Have you noticed this, JT?
Yeah, and I think they're so there to win. And everything else, to me, seems like it's a distraction or they're not interested. other than winning. And that's something that goes back years as part of this program. You talk to Roger DeCosta, you talk to people around that program. If they're not winning, it's not good enough. So of course, I think they want to be involved and they love everything about it, but winning is their primary goal. That's all they're there to do. Everything else takes away from the focus on winning. So I've spent a lot of my time in Europe around Germany, Austria racing, and they reward excellence and they reward winning. I don't know if the two things are correlated, but it may just be if they're not there to win and it doesn't have anything to do with making them go faster on the racetrack, they're just going to step away from it.
Hey, I just thought of this. Yes, they didn't have retro graphics on the bikes at San Diego, but then Aaron Plessinger won. I'm sure they weren't upset at all about how that night played out.
Yeah, winning seems to make everything feel a little bit better, and you can kind of overlook maybe a miss here and there.
Now, make no mistake about this. The riders are all about this military appreciation race. They have a huge respect for what everyone in the armed services does. Let's hear from a few of our top athletes on that topic.
I have a crazy amount of respect for those guys. That's, what they do is why I get to do what I do and why we get to live in this world that we do.
So my mom was in the Navy and my papa, her dad, was in the Air Force. So my great-grandpa, Richard Overman, he served in World War II. He is still with us today. He is about to turn 106 years old, and he's still crushing it. Watches my races. I go over there and see him when I can, but he's just my favorite human being ever.
Yeah, in Arlington we have a military appreciation race, and for myself, it's close to home. My brother's in the Air Force. He graduated from the academy in 2009, and he's still serving in the Air Force.
Obviously, I'm huge into flying, so I love the guys in the Air Force and things like that. Anytime they do something special like flyovers or stuff like that over the stadium, I'm like, I could have seen myself doing something like that, but obviously my career path took me a different way.
All right, everyone, we are on to Arlington, Texas. Let's show you how to watch Race Day Live at 1:30 Eastern, and then we're going to bring back the pre-race show that we had at Anaheim 1. So although racing starts at 7 Eastern, tune in a half hour early for the pre-race show at 6:30 East, hosted by Katie Osborne, and we will bring Justin Brayton to the set. There'll be a quiz at the end of the show. Who is the oldest 450 Supercross main event winner in history? You should know by now. We talked about it on this episode. So it'll be good to have KO and JB hosting, and then the racing starts at 7. And just after having a week off, honestly, JT, I think everybody's pumped to get going again.
Well, speaking of having a weekend off, Weege, you were missing from Glendale, but you will be rejoining the team alongside Ricky Carmichael in the booth, and we could not be more excited to have you back.
Yeah, and I'm excited because I spent the off weekend riding motorcycles, which is fun, but also extremely painful. Every muscle in the body was sore after 2 days of riding, so at least I'll feel better physically when I'm done doing the work this weekend at Arlington. So we're pumped on it. Remember, everyone, the parity, the points, the amount of winners. We've been talking about it all year. We've never quite had a season starting with this level of excitement, and we think it's going to roll on into Texas. So we'll see you this weekend.